Have you ever felt the need to prove yourself? To win the argument, to be recognized, to defend your worth? That's the ego at work. But here's the catch. What we think makes us strong can actually hold us back. The ego thrives on external validation. It feeds off praise, but it also feeds off negativity. And the more we let it control us, the more fragile we become. True confidence isn't about proving, it's about knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, and knowing that your worth isn't up for debate. So how do we rise above the ego trap? How do we stay confident without being consumed by the need to prove ourselves? Let's talk about it. We like to believe we're in control, that if we say the right things, make the right moves, and present ourselves the right way, we can dictate how others see us, how situations unfold, and how life rewards us. But the truth is, control is an illusion. The more we cling to it, the more fragile we become. The ego convinces us that we must always be in charge of our reputation, of our success, of how others perceive us. It tells us that if we just try hard enough, if we're smart enough, if we say the perfect words at the perfect time, we can ensure that people will admire us, respect us, and agree with us. But no matter how much we prepare, no matter how much effort we put in, there will always be factors beyond our reach. Think about how much energy we spend trying to control things we can't control. We try to control people's opinions of us, yet no matter how hard we try, someone will always misunderstand, misinterpret, or judge us unfairly. We try to control outcomes, believing that if we work hard enough, success is guaranteed, only to face unexpected failures, setbacks, or circumstances that shift beyond our power. And the moment things don't go according to plan, the ego panics. It tells us that we need to fix it, force it, prove something. It pushes us into a cycle of frustration and anxiety because we are trying to control something that was never ours to control in the first place. But real confidence, the kind that is unshakable, doesn't come from control. It comes from trust. Trusting ourselves to handle whatever comes. Trusting that setbacks don't define us. Trusting that we don't need to manipulate outcomes to be worthy, successful, or respected. Imagine walking into a room knowing that not everyone will like you and being okay with it. Imagine putting your best work forward knowing that not everyone will recognize it and still being proud of it. Imagine standing firm in your decisions knowing that not everyone will agree and still feeling confident in your choices. That's what happens when we release the illusion of control. We stop trying to force the world to fit our expectations, and instead we focus on what we can control, our actions, our mindset, our values, and the way we respond to what life throws at us. But letting go of control, the ego resists. It thrives on the belief that if it just works hard enough, fights hard enough, and pushes hard enough, it can bend reality to its will. But the harder we hold on, the more exhausted we become. Because control isn't strength, it's fear disguised as power. When we stop wasting energy on controlling the uncontrollable, we free ourselves. We start to make decisions from a place of clarity, not desperation. We stop chasing approval, stop forcing outcomes, stop fearing the unknown. We become less reactive, less defensive, less consumed by how others perceive us. And the irony is, the less we try to control everything, the more control we actually gain. Over ourselves, over our emotions, over our ability to stay steady no matter what happens. Because real strength isn't about bending the world to our will. It's about learning to navigate it with confidence, no matter where it takes us. Ego and confidence are often mistaken for the same thing. They can look alike on the surface. Both can be bold, both can be assertive, both can take up space. But deep down, they are built on entirely different foundations. Ego is fragile. Confidence is strong. Ego demands validation. Confidence doesn't need it. Ego reacts. Confidence responds. The ego is like a thin sheet of glass, hard, rigid, and seemingly strong. But the moment pressure is applied, the moment it is scratched, cracked, or challenged, it shatters. The ego thrives on external validation, on being admired, respected, and seen as important. It needs constant reassurance that it is valuable, and when that reassurance disappears, when it faces criticism, failure, or rejection, it doesn't know how to handle it. It breaks. Confidence, on the other hand, is like a deep-rooted tree. It doesn't crumble under pressure, because it isn't built on approval, it is built on self-awareness and inner trust. It knows that external opinions don't define its worth. It doesn't seek validation, but it also doesn't fear judgment. Because confidence isn't about being perfect, it's about being grounded in who you are, no matter what others say. Think about how the ego reacts to criticism. It becomes defensive, aggressive, and reactive. If someone challenges its ideas, it takes it personally. If someone points out a flaw, it feels attacked. The ego sees everything as a threat because it is constantly trying to prove its worth rather than simply knowing its worth. Confidence, however, welcomes feedback, doesn't fear criticism because it understands that learning and growth come from listening, from adjusting, from being open. A confident person doesn't feel the need to be right all the time. They feel the need to be better. They don't see challenges as attacks, but as opportunities. Now look at how ego and confidence handle failure. The ego cannot tolerate it. Failure bruises its pride, and instead of learning from it, it makes excuses, blames others, or avoids responsibility. The ego sees failure as proof of unworthiness, which is why it will do anything to avoid it. Confidence, however, sees failure as part of the process. It understands that setbacks don't define a person's worth, they refine it. A confident person doesn't run from failure. They analyze it, learn from it, and use it to become stronger. They are not afraid of looking foolish, of making mistakes, of being wrong, because they are secure in their ability to grow and improve. Another key difference, how ego and confidence handle praise. The ego feeds off compliments, needs them to survive. It inflates when praised, becoming arrogant, overconfident, even careless. It starts to believe it is untouchable, that it has nothing left to learn, that it is somehow above others. And that's when the ego sets people up for their greatest downfalls, because the moment the praise stops, so does its sense of self-worth. Confidence, however, doesn't rely on praise. It appreciates it, but it doesn't need it. A confident person doesn't base their value on how much recognition they receive. They are not chasing approval or admiration. They are rooted in their purpose, their values, and their growth. The fragility of ego is what makes people defensive, insecure, and trapped by the need to prove themselves. The strength of confidence is what allows people to move forward, to take risks, to own their mistakes, and to rise above negativity. And the moment we learn to recognize the difference, we stop living for validation and start living for something much greater. Negativity is everywhere. It's in the criticism we receive, the doubts people cast on us, the failures we experience, and sometimes it's even in our own minds. It comes from people who don't understand us, from circumstances that don't go our way, and from the fears we hold on to. And if we're not careful, negativity can pull us under. It can make us question our worth, our direction, and our ability to keep going. But negativity only has power over us if we give it power. If we internalize every negative comment, if we allow every rejection to shake us, if we let every setback define us, we become prisoners of the external world. We become reactive instead of proactive. We start living not based on what we believe, but based on how others make us feel. There's a reason negativity affects people differently. Some rise above it, while others get stuck in it. The difference isn't that one group experiences less negativity, it's that they respond to it differently. Because rising above negativity isn't about avoiding it, it's about learning how to face it without letting it consume us. One of the biggest traps the ego falls into is taking negativity personally. The moment someone criticizes us, doubts us, or challenges us, the ego rushes to defend, react, and prove something. But here's the truth. Not all negativity is about us. Often it's about them, their own fears, their own insecurities, their own need to bring others down so they don't feel small. Think about the people who criticize them most. Are they the ones who are out there taking risks, pushing themselves, building something meaningful? Or are they the ones standing on the sidelines, pointing fingers, waiting for someone else to fail? There will always be people who try to pull others down. Sometimes they do it out of jealousy, sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of their own unresolved pain. But we don't have to let their negativity shape us, because the moment we do, we hand over control of our emotions, our confidence, and our self-worth. The second way negativity traps us is through self-doubt. When we fail, when we hear criticism, when things don't go our way, we start to wonder, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll never succeed. And once those thoughts take hold, they spread. They turn into hesitation. Hesitation turns into inaction, and inaction turns into regret. But what if we reframed negativity? What if, instead of seeing it as an attack, we saw it as a test of how much we really believe in ourselves, a test of whether we are strong enough to keep going even when the world tells us we can't, a test of whether we're willing to bet on ourselves even when others don't. The most successful people in the world, the ones who changed industries, built empires, and inspired generations, were all told at some point that they couldn't do it. They were laughed at, doubted, ridiculed, but they didn't let that negativity define them. Instead, they used it as fuel, not to prove people wrong, but to prove to themselves that they were capable. There is also another kind of negativity, the kind that comes from within. The voice in our head that tells us we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not experienced enough. And the problem with this kind of negativity is that we tend to believe it more than anything else, because it's coming from us. But just because a thought enters our mind doesn't make it true. And just because we've failed in the past doesn't mean we're doomed to fail again. The mind is like a lens. If we train it to see only negativity, that's all we will find. But if we train it to see possibilities, to look for solutions, to focus on progress instead of problems, we change everything. Negativity will always exist. It will come from others. It will come from failure. It will come from our own thoughts. But the people who rise above it are the ones who refuse to let it control them, the ones who decide that their belief in themselves is stronger than the doubts of the world, the ones who keep moving forward even when negativity tries to hold them back. At some point, we all crave validation. It's human nature to want to be seen, acknowledged, and appreciated. From the time we are children, we learn that praise feels good, that approval brings rewards, and that being accepted by others gives us a sense of belonging. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be recognized. It becomes a problem when that need for validation starts dictating our actions, our decisions, and ultimately our self-worth. Validation feels good in the moment. A compliment, a promotion, a round of applause, it gives us a temporary high. But the problem with relying on validation is that it never lasts. The applause dies down, the compliments stop, the approval fades. And when we tie our sense of worth to external validation, we find ourselves constantly chasing the next hit. The ego thrives on this chase. It convinces us that if we just get enough recognition, we'll finally feel confident. If we just prove ourselves enough, we'll finally feel secure. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can replace true inner growth. Because when we prioritize validation over growth, we fall into a trap. We start making choices based on what will get us approval rather than what will actually make us better. We avoid risks, challenges, and difficult conversations because they might make us look weak or inexperienced. We seek short-term wins instead of long-term progress. We become addicted to praise, and when it disappears, so does our confidence. But the people who truly succeed, who build lasting confidence, who make an impact, who evolve into their best selves, aren't the ones who chase validation. They're the ones who prioritize growth. Choosing growth means being willing to be wrong. It means admitting when we don't have all the answers. It means stepping outside of our comfort zones, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it makes us look inexperienced, even when it comes with failure. It means focusing more on learning than impressing. Think about the difference between someone who wants to look smart versus someone who wants to get smarter. The person who craves validation will avoid asking questions because they don't want to seem uninformed. They will hesitate to try new things because they don't want to fail in front of others. They will play it safe because safety ensures they never look foolish. But the person who prioritizes growth, they ask the hard questions. They admit when they don't know something because they care more about learning than looking like they already have all the answers. They take risks, they make mistakes, and they grow because of it. Choosing growth over validation means embracing feedback, not fearing it. The ego resists feedback because it feels like criticism. But growth-minded people seek feedback because they understand that it's the fastest way to improve. They aren't afraid of constructive criticism because they don't see it as an attack on their worth. They see it as a tool for progress. It also means measuring success differently. Instead of asking, did I get recognized, we start asking, did I improve? Instead of wondering, did people like what I did, we ask, did I challenge myself? Did I stretch beyond my comfort zone? Did I become better than I was yesterday? And the irony is, when we stop chasing validation and start focusing on growth, true confidence follows. Because confidence isn't built on the approval of others, it's built on knowing that we are becoming stronger, smarter, and better every day. It's built on trusting that our worth isn't determined by applause, but by who we are and what we're capable of. When we choose growth over validation, we stop living for the expectations of others and start living for something much bigger, our own potential. The ego trap is a cycle that keeps us chasing control, validation, and approval while keeping us fragile, defensive, and reactive. It convinces us that confidence comes from being admired, from proving ourselves, from winning every argument. But real confidence isn't about control. It isn't about external praise. It isn't about avoiding failure or silencing criticism. Real confidence comes from letting go of the illusion of control, letting go of the need to prove ourselves, letting go of the fear of negativity. It comes from knowing that our worth isn't defined by how others see us, but by how we choose to show up every day. When we understand the difference between ego and confidence, we stop reacting and start responding. When we learn to rise above negativity, we stop being prisoners of external opinions. When we prioritize growth over validation, we stop chasing approval and start chasing real progress. And the irony? The less we seek validation, the more secure we feel. The less we fear negativity, the stronger we become. The moment we stop trying to control how the world sees us is the moment we truly own who we are.